Now at 10, local Corvette enthusiasts gather in the Yale Show to teach driving skills and look cool while doing it. Plus, the National Park Service celebrates the life, faith, and legacy of George Washington Carver. And the FBI takes precautionary measures after receiving an unprecedented amount of threats. We'll have more.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Summer fun continues today out at Crowder College with some fast vehicles. This is the KOAM News at 10. I'm Jalen Banks. 4 State Vets is a group of Corvette enthusiasts located around the 4-state area of Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Today they were in the Yale Show. Mark Roundtree, a racer since 1985, says this event helps people learn and even control their cars better.
Well, I tell you what, I've been doing this since 1985 or 86, and I think about everybody who drives needs to do something like this to learn how to control your car in a place where you can drive it like you stole it and not get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? So this is some place you can learn car control to a much higher degree than you could out on the streets.
The next meeting and event of the group is on September 10th. The National Park Service is celebrating the life and faith of George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver was an American agricultural scientist and inventor who promoted alternative crops to cotton and methods to prevent soil depletion. He was one of the most prominent African American scientists of the early 20th century. He was a man known for his knowledge, his lifelong service to humanity, and most especially his faith. Park officials say no matter where he was, he always spoke about his faith.
His very first prayer was actually said on these grounds. And through his life, no matter where he was, no matter where he ended up, there was always that connection to God and connection to faith. Because he'll have Bible studies, he'll go for walks, it's a part of him. No matter, and anytime anybody asked him where any of his ideas come from, he would always say from above.
George Washington Carver passed away in Tuskegee, Alabama on January 5th, 1943. And now Sam Lane joins us with the first look at the forecast.
Thank you very much. It was another hot day across the area with temperatures well above 100 degrees out to the west. Even here in Joplin, we got up to 100, and I'll show you that in a second. Wanted to show you radar because there was some indications earlier, some showers developing way up to the north. Instead, we just have this boundary that's kind of making its way to the south, but it's going to run out of gas. And it's not really going to change much except our wind direction. Temperatures right now are still pretty mild, to say the least. Earlier this afternoon, you can see highs were in the 100s once again across southeastern Kansas. Over in Cassville, they made it up to 94. Here in Joplin, we did hit the century mark one more time. Temperatures right now are still mild in the 70s to around 80 degrees. And looks like we're going to be in for some changes, and I think everyone's going to enjoy it. But there's the normals, 91 and 69, and we were only 3 degrees away from the record. No more records in the forecast, but I do have some rain for you, and you'll want to stay tuned.
Tonight, federal law enforcement is on high alert after an unprecedented number of threats against them happened. Threats circulating online included the name of 2 FBI agents who searched former President Trump's Florida estate. And in Washington, workers placed fences and protective barriers at the FBI headquarters ahead of any possible protest. Elise Preston is in New York with the latest.
A joint FBI Homeland Security memo sent to law enforcement across the country warns of growing threats against them, including a threat to place a so-called dirty bomb in front of FBI headquarters and general calls for civil war and armed rebellion. The uptick follows the August 8th search of former President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home. The memo stating the FBI and DHS have identified multiple articulated threats and calls for the targeted killing of judicial, law enforcement, and government officials associated with the Palm Beach search. That's alarming to former FBI agent turned Pennsylvania Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, appearing on Face the Nation.
I myself have been notified by the Bureau that my life was put in danger recently by some of these same people.
The bulletin also cites last Thursday's attempt on the FBI's Cincinnati field office, where an armed suspect failed to breach the facility and then led authorities on a pursuit and prolonged standoff that ultimately ended in his death.
This is beyond politics. They're simply doing their jobs, and we have to let them do their jobs.
The memo says statements made by public officials that incite violence could drive threats, and there is growing concern heading into midterm elections. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
Developments in the seizure of White House documents from former President Donald Trump's Florida residence continue to unfold. Elise Preston has more.
The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee is asking the Director of National Intelligence for an immediate review and damage assessment after revelations former President Trump kept highly classified White House information at his Florida estate.
The fact that they were in an unsecure place that is guarded with nothing more than a padlock or whatever security they had at a hotel is deeply alarming.
On Friday, a federal judge unsealed the warrant that authorized last week's FBI search of Mar-a-Lago and a receipt of items that were seized. It said agents retrieved close to 24 boxes of material containing 11 sets of classified documents, some marked top secret. The Justice Department is investigating Trump for potential criminal action. It found probable cause of impeding the investigation, as well as the removal of classified national security records and violation of parts of the Espionage Act. House Republicans are demanding the Department of Justice hand over the affidavit detailing the basis for their warrant.
The affidavit in support of the warrant will give you the probable cause to try to understand what is going on here.
Meanwhile, CBS News has learned a joint FBI Homeland Security memo sent to law enforcement across the country warns of growing threats against them, including a threat to place a so-called dirty bomb in front of FBI headquarters and general cause for civil war and armed rebellion. Over the weekend, supporters of the former president gathered again near Mar-a-Lago to protest the search of his home. Demonstrators also turned out at the FBI field offices in Los Angeles and Phoenix and at a rally in New Jersey. Elise Preston, CBS News.
We now take time to honor one of our four-state heroes. Staff Sergeant Ronald Murray served in the Army from 1968 till 1970. He served in Vietnam and Germany. The Iola, Kansas native earned 2 Presidential Unit citations. To Staff Sergeant Ronald Murray, we thank you, our four-state hero. And coming up next, Ukraine attempts to take back a crucial region from the capital of Russia. Monday will mark a year of the U.S. pulling out of Afghanistan. And now CBS has the latest.
The Taliban's grip on Afghanistan is tighter now more than ever, following its rapid takeover 1 year ago when its fighters seized the capital Kabul after 2 decades of brutal war. It triggered the collapse of the Western-backed republic and paved the way for what they call the Islamic Emirate. But 1 year on, and the Taliban's control of Afghanistan appears to have some limits. Earlier this month, President Biden announced a U.S. drone in Kabul killed Ayman al-Zawahri, the leader of al-Qaeda and 9/11 plotter. Abdul Qahar Balki is the Taliban spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who says an investigation into whether Zawahri was even in Afghanistan is still ongoing.
If it's determined that Ayman al-Zawahri was living here in Kabul freely, what will the Taliban leadership do about this?
We will wait for the facts to come out before making any decisions.
But it is a problem if you do have the leader of a foreign terror group living within your borders, isn't it?
It is absolutely a problem that the sovereignty of a sovereign state is violated.
Zawahri's apparent death is a serious complication for the Taliban leadership, which is asking for international recognition and access to global financial systems. Following last year's takeover, the country's economy collapsed after the U.S. froze billions in assets, triggering what the UN calls the worst humanitarian crisis in the world. And yet, the Taliban's emirate seems more focused on controlling the lives of its citizens, especially women, who have seen so much of the progress they've made over the past 20 years disappear. On Saturday, in defiance of Taliban laws, dozens of Afghan women took to the streets of Kabul to demand their rights, chanting bread, education, and freedom. But were instead met with bullets as Taliban security forces fired live rounds into the air to try and disperse them.
On the 1 year anniversary of the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, and few Afghans are celebrating as they struggle to feed their families and find themselves living under increasingly oppressive rule. Imtiaz Taib, CBS News, Kabul.
Now to the war in Ukraine, where President Zelensky is planning a new offensive and warning Russian forces targeting Europe's largest nuclear plant. Charlie D'Agata is in Nikopol with the latest.
Ukrainian forces bear down on Russian targets. Military officials tell CBS News troops are preparing for an all-out assault to recapture Kherson, the only regional capital the Russians have conquered since the invasion began nearly 6 months ago. On a frontline position we can't reveal, we spoke with combat medic Sergei Zaitsev.
Can you describe what the situation has been like here for the past few days?
Over the last week, the Russians have intensified the shelling, he said, but he added, because of the supply of high-precision weapons from Western allies, the Russians have not advanced at all. Commanders credit American-supplied HIMARS weapons for destroying ammunition depots and supply lines deep into Russian-held territory. But they haven't stopped the Russian military from raining rockets down on towns and cities within easy reach.
The indiscriminate shelling of residential neighborhoods is a tragic reality for frontline towns like this one. What makes this strike different is where the attack came from.
Just across the Dnipro River, not more than a few miles away, lies the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Residents here on the opposite bank tell us they've come under intense nightly bombardment launched from the Russian-held facility, accusing Putin's troops of using it as a shield. Deputy Mayor of Nikopol, Natalia Horbalit.
What time does the shelling begin?
Today we heard shelling both at 1:30 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Last night, President Volodymyr Zelensky warned every Russian soldier who shoots at the plant or uses the plant for cover will become a special target. But nobody is backing down. The battle rages on, putting not only the plant, but the entire region in peril. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, Nikopol, Ukraine.
And later, the Kansas City Chiefs played their first preseason game this weekend. Danny Turgeon will have the details in sports.
And football weather may be right around the corner. I'll have details coming right up. Well, friends, it was another hot August weekend across the 4 states with temperatures reaching 100 degrees in many locations. It's still mild right now. Looking outside at Seneca, Missouri, with the Indigo Sky Casino and Resort, a beautiful evening down there, as well as across the entire 4-state area. As I mentioned, it did reach 100 degrees in Joplin today, and folks, that means we've had 13 days of above normal temperatures already this month, only 1 day below normal. So we're already on track to setting a pretty record, or maybe close to a record, August. But the good news is there are some changes afoot, and that's really good news, especially when it comes to precipitation, because we are really far behind in some areas of southeastern Kansas. So far this summer, we've had 3 weeks of 100 plus days of temperatures pretty hot. The most we've ever had of 100 plus was back in 1954, and the longest stretch of 100 plus days was way back in July of 1980, where there were 19 days in a row of 100 degree temperatures. So it could be worse, I guess you could say. Our temperatures this afternoon were pretty hot. Right now, they're in the mid 80s across our area, but notice there is a wind shift line up to the north, and so it's just slightly cooler north of that boundary in Fort Scott, where it's 83. Nevada is 84 right now and 80 over in Stockton. But that boundary is going to kind of wash out. So we're going to have to wait for a stronger storm system to roll in from the west to really change things. Dew points right now are in the upper 60s to right around 70 degrees. So it's pretty muggy out there and sticky as well. But like I said, that's going to help our rain chances as that front starts to plow through the atmosphere. Currently in Joplin, it's 84 degrees, feels like 87. That's because the dew point is 68 and 58% on the humidity. If you've been suffering from allergies, here's why. The allergy index today was 8.9 out of 10. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit better, 8.3. Most of this is ragweed and chenopod. So if you're sneezing and sniffling, that's probably why. Temperatures this evening are going to drop down into the mid 70s across our area, 75 in Joplin, 72 in Fort Scott. Notice the wind change. But as that front moves to the south, it kind of fades away, and instead it's going to be replaced by more hot air tomorrow, with highs in the upper 80s, upper 90s to near 100 yet again across our area. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have a frontal system move in from the north and west, and this is a pretty strong front. Southerly winds on Tuesday morning with high lows in the upper 70s, and then Tuesday afternoon, again warm, especially south of that boundary, near 100 in Veneta and in Jay, but 80s up towards the north. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's headed our way. And then by Tuesday night into Wednesday, temperatures dropping down into the 60s for your nighttime lows. Rainfall, it's going to be very important, especially for western parts of our area, because this is extremely dry. Unfortunately, it looks like most of the rain with this system is going to be in Missouri, just off to the east. And notice there's a very sharp contrast here between 1-inch amounts and not very much at all. So hopefully everyone will get a little bit of rain. All right, let's take a look at the forecast for the next 7 days. 97 on Monday, 96 on Tuesday, but then as we go into Wednesday, 80 degrees only for the high, and it stays in the 80s the rest of the week. So rain chances and cooler temperatures. I think everyone's going to like it.
Awesome. Yeah, you were talking about that football weather earlier.
Yes.
We can see it on
Bring
the
it on.
forecast now. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Sam. And turning to sports, the Cards and Brewers close out a series.
Yeah, and the Royals host Game 3 against the Dodgers. Highlights from both of those games coming up. Plus, a former NFL lineman joins the East Newton coaching staff. Details next. There's an exciting new addition to East Newton's coaching staff. Former NFL player Alan Barber is returning to his alma mater to help lead the Patriots this season. Barber played at Missouri Southern from 2003 to 2006 before getting drafted by the Green Bay Packers. He spent 10 years playing in the NFL. Now Barber is passing down his wisdom as the offensive line coach at East Newton. He never thought he had a future as a coach, but he says he has more to give.
I want to take the opportunity and, maybe see if I could help the program, see if I could give back to the kids. Maybe we can kind of build back some tradition and start working in the right direction. I see a lot of myself in a lot of these kids. We got a small senior class, and we got a lot of young guys. We got the guys that kind of do it. You just got to continue to work hard, and we got to buy in and believe.
The Kansas City Chiefs played in their first of 3 preseason games on Saturday. The Chiefs fell to the Bears 19-14, but there were a handful of positive takeaways. Rookie linebacker Leo Chenal led the team with 7 tackles. George Karlaftis had a big sack on 3rd down. On offense, touchdowns came from Blake Bell and Justin Watson. As for Mahomes, he only played the opening drive, but he went 6 for 7 for 60 yards and a score, and each of those completions were to a different receiver.
I think it's going to be a lot like that this year. I mean, it's going to come from everywhere. We saw kind of 6 different receivers. Juju didn't even get a catch. You didn't see any of the other tight ends get catches. And so I think you're going to, any other running backs, so I think it's going to come from everywhere this year. It's going to be hard for teams to kind of game plan against. I mean, obviously Travis is going to probably have a lot of catches. That's just who he is. But I think other than that, it's going to come from the whole group. And I think the guys have kind of embraced that and know that whenever their number does get called, they're going to make a play.
Big series between the Cardinals and the Brewers this weekend. They are fighting for first place in the Central Division. It's tied at 1 game apiece heading into today's finale. Cards trailing early. Albert Pujols brings Busch Stadium to its feet, crushes a homer to left, puts St. Louis within 1. There he is for the curtain call. Later, Tyler O'Neill ties up the ball game with a solo shot to center, 2-2. Cards put up a big 8th inning, doing damage with the long ball today. First, it's Dylan Carlson going deep. Then back to Pujols with 2 runners on. He smashes another. That's 689 career home runs, 5th most in MLB history. What a day. Cards take the series from the Brewers, winning this one 6-3. Royals aiming to take one from the Dodgers. Salvador Perez puts Kansas City on the board in the first. Doubles in the gap. Michael Taylor scores. Great day for Brady Singer on the mound. 5 strikeouts through 3. He finishes with 7 Ks over 6 scoreless innings. In the third, bases loaded, Vinny Pasquantino lines one to right. Nicky Lopez scores. 2-0 Royals. Defense helping Singer out as well. Blooper to shallow right. Nate Eaton dives to make the play. And Singer is happy with that effort. Later, Kyle Isbell extends the lead past Quintino. Singles scores off the single. And then Pasquantino at the plate once again in the 8th. Solo jack to center. He goes 3 for 4 with 2 RBI and 2 runs. Royals snap the Dodgers' 12-game winning streak. It's a 4-0 shutout win. That's a look at sports. We'll be right back.
All right, Sam, we got some cooler temps on the horizon.
Absolutely. We have some cooler temperatures and also some rainfall too, which is desperately needed. 60% chance of storms late Tuesday into Wednesday morning. But look at the high on Wednesday, only 80, and then 83 on Thursday, 87 on Friday, and another chance of storms, mainly Saturday morning with highs in the mid-80s the weekend. And then if we extend it out, a 20% chance of showers on Monday, mainly down in the southern sections, and then another chance of storms late Wednesday. So a chance of rain and cooler temperatures, and I think everyone's enjoying that forecast because it has been a brutal summer so far.
Awesome. Patrick Mahomes saying it's going to be hard to game plan for them. It's crazy.
Fighting words, right? But
Yeah.
I mean, you got to back your team.
Right.
So they do have a lot of weapons with Tyreek leaving. You know, they got to fill some of those spots. So maybe they'll spread it out a little bit more this year. But I'm looking at those weather temperatures because Kansas high school football starts on Monday, and that looks much better than 100 degrees like last week.
Absolutely.
They caught
I
a
think
break
they're
for
gonna
sure.
enjoy that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that's our time for now. Remember, we're always on at KOAMNewsNow.com and with the KOAM News Now app. Thanks for making us part of your night and tuning in. We hope you have a great one.
Services provided by the Wild Side in Pittsburgh for over 25 years.
Closed captioning